You probably think you know why cities build stadiums. The mayor stands at a podium. The owner shakes hands. The crowd cheers. $1 billion arena goes up, and everyone calls it a win for the city. But here's what almost nobody talks about. In most of these deals, the city didn't win. The city was played. And the playbook used against them was written decades ago. And it works every single time. By the end of this video, I'm going to show you the one mechanism that explains why American cities keep handing hundreds of millions of public dollars to some of the wealthiest men in the country. And once you see it, you'll never watch a stadium ribbon cutting the same way again. Let's start with a number: $50 billion. That is a conservative estimate of how much American taxpayers have contributed to professional sports stadiums since 1970. $50 billion. Not from team owners, not from private investors, from you, from the cities, from public budgets that also fund schools, roads, and hospitals. And here's what makes that number even more remarkable. Economists have studied stadium subsidies for decades. Study after study, from the Brookings Institution, from Harvard researchers, from the Federal Reserve Bank of St. Louis, has found little to no evidence that publicly funded stadiums produce the long-term economic growth that cities are promised. So why does it keep happening? The answer is not stupidity. It's not corruption. At least not always. The answer is leverage. And no one in American sports has more of it than the team owners. To understand how this system works, you need to understand one fundamental truth about professional sports in America. There are only 32 NFL franchises, 30 teams in the NBA, 30 in MLB. These are not just sports teams. They are monopoly assets. There is no free market for professional football teams. You cannot start a competing league and expect it to survive. The NFL has tried and failed to be challenged, multiple times, which means that if your city has a team, you are not negotiating with a business. You are negotiating with someone who holds something irreplaceable, and they know it. Now stay with me here, because this next part is where the system gets genuinely fascinating and a little bit disturbing. In most industries, when a company wants a new headquarters, it pays for it. Apple built a $5 billion campus in Cupertino. Amazon paid for its second headquarters expansion. Private businesses fund their own infrastructure because that's how capitalism works. But professional sports teams are different. Owners will tell you that stadium revenue, ticket sales, concessions, naming rights, premium suites, does not always justify the full cost of a new venue on its own. And there's some truth in that. Modern NFL stadiums can cost between $1.5 and $4 billion. That is a staggering capital requirement. So owners go to cities with a proposition: we'll build this together. You put in public money, we'll bring jobs, tourism, tax revenue, civic pride. Everyone wins. And then they add the part they don't always say out loud: unless you help us build it, we might have to take the team somewhere that will. That threat, the relocation threat, is the single most powerful weapon in stadium negotiations. And I want to show you exactly how it works, because it's been used more successfully than almost any other corporate negotiation tactic in American history. Let's talk about Las Vegas. In 2016, the Oakland Raiders were playing in one of the oldest, most deteriorated stadiums in the NFL. The Oakland Coliseum had been patched and repaired for decades. The team wanted a new stadium. They went to the city of Oakland and Alameda County asking for public support. The negotiations went nowhere. Oakland couldn't, or wouldn't, commit to the kind of subsidy the Raiders were looking for. So the Raiders looked elsewhere. Las Vegas had never had an NFL team. It had no football culture, no generational fan base, none of the organic civic attachment that cities like Oakland, Green Bay, or Pittsburgh had built over decades. But Las Vegas had something else. A government willing to move fast, a tourism economy that could frame a stadium as infrastructure, and most importantly, money. In 2016, the Nevada legislature approved $750 million in public funding toward what would become Allegiant Stadium. $750 million taxpayer dollars drawn from hotel room taxes to help build a stadium for a team that had never played a single game in the state. The final cost of Allegiant Stadium? Approximately $1.9 billion. The Raiders and the NFL contributed the rest, but $750 million, nearly 40% of the total cost, came from the public. And Oakland? Oakland lost its team. A city with decades of Raiders history, a fan base known as one of the most passionate in football, lost its franchise to a city that had no football tradition at all, because Las Vegas offered more public money. That is the relocation threat in its purest form. And here's the part that should make you pause. The Raiders are now worth an estimated $6 billion. The owner, Mark Davis, inherited the team valued at roughly $600 million. That value didn't come from smart management alone. It came from a new stadium, new revenue streams, and a public subsidy that made the whole thing financially viable. But the Las Vegas story is only one version of this. There's another version, quieter, more sophisticated, and in some ways even more instructive. Let's talk about Atlanta. In 2013, the Atlanta Braves were playing at Turner Field, a stadium built just 17 years earlier for the 1996 Olympics. By most objective measures, it was a functional, modern facility. And yet the Braves announced they were leaving it, not for another city, for the suburbs. They relocated to Cobb County, Georgia, a wealthy suburban area north of Atlanta, and Cobb County agreed to contribute nearly $400 million in public funding toward the new stadium, SunTrust Park, now known as Truist Park. On the surface, this looked like a straightforward stadium deal, but what the Braves were really building wasn't just a ballpark, it was a real estate empire. Surrounding the stadium, the team developed a massive mixed-use complex called the Battery Atlanta. Restaurants, hotels, apartments, retail space, a self-contained entertainment district. The Braves didn't just get a new stadium, they got anchor infrastructure, publicly subsidized, around which they could develop and control an entire commercial neighborhood. The land around that stadium became enormously valuable, and the Braves, not Cobb County taxpayers, own most of it. This is the second mechanism. Public money doesn't just build stadiums. It builds the conditions for private real estate development. The team gets a publicly subsidized anchor that drives foot traffic and raises surrounding land values. The profit from that development flows back to the franchise. The public got a baseball team, the Braves got a neighborhood. Now I want to show you the third mechanism, and this one operates entirely in the financial architecture, in the structure of how stadium deals are actually funded. Because most people assume that when a city puts in money, it's writing a check. It's rarely that simple. The most common public financing tool for stadiums is the municipal bond. Here's how it works. A city or state government issues bonds, essentially borrowing money from investors and promising to repay them with interest over decades. The proceeds go towards stadium construction. The debt is then repaid through tax revenue, sometimes general tax revenue, sometimes dedicated taxes on hotel rooms, rental cars, ticket sales, or other targeted streams. What this means in practice is that the full cost of a stadium subsidy is often invisible at the moment the deal is signed. A city doesn't hand over $500 million on day one. It commits to 30 years of debt service. And over 30 years with interest, that $500 million commitment can cost significantly more. In 2020, a detailed analysis of the Las Vegas stadium deal found that when interest on the bonds is fully accounted for, the total public cost could exceed $1 billion, far beyond the $750 million headline figure that was presented to Nevada voters. This is deliberate, framing the public contribution as a smaller upfront number rather than the full 30-year cost makes deals easier to sell politically, and it is entirely legal. Speaking of politics, let's talk about why politicians keep approving these deals even when economists are skeptical and voters are divided. The answer is surprisingly straightforward. The benefits of a stadium deal are visible, immediate, and concentrated. The costs are diffuse, delayed, and spread across millions of taxpayers. When a mayor approves a new stadium, they get a ribbon-cutting ceremony. They get national coverage. They get credit for keeping the team. They get to stand on a stage with the owner and the quarterback and the commissioner of the NFL. That political capital is real and it is immediate. The bond repayments? Those come due over the next 30 years, long after the politician who signed the deal has left office. The diffuse cost borne by taxpayers, a few dollars per person per year through hotel taxes or general revenue, never crystallizes into visible pain. Nobody feels $11 a year, but $11 times a million taxpayers times 30 years adds up to something enormous. This structure, concentrated visible benefit, diffuse invisible cost, is one of the oldest tricks in public finance, and it happens to work perfectly for stadium deals. Now, I told you at the beginning that I'd show you the one mechanism that explains everything, And we've been building toward it this whole time. Here it is. The real reason cities keep paying for stadiums is not that they believe all the economic promises. Many city officials know the projections are optimistic. Many economists on their own staff will tell them the numbers don't fully add up. The real reason is this. The team owner is negotiating with an asset you cannot replace, and you are negotiating with a budget you cannot fully protect. When the Raiders threatened to leave Oakland, Oakland faced an asymmetric choice: accept a bad deal or lose the team forever. There is no middle option. There is no, we'll find another NFL team. The NFL does not create new franchises on demand. The scarcity is structural, permanent, and completely controlled by the league. Team owners understand this asymmetry with precision. They use it. Their leverage is not just financial, it's emotional. A city that has had a team for 40 years has attached civic identity, generational memory, and cultural pride to that franchise. The owner knows that the political cost of losing the team, the backlash, the headlines, the damage to a mayor's legacy, is often greater than the financial cost of the subsidy. So cities pay, not always because the math is obvious, but because the alternative feels unbearable. And here's the part that almost never gets discussed. While cities are negotiating from that weaker position, the team's value is compounding in the background. Every new stadium increases franchise value. Every naming rights deal, every premium suite package, every surrounding real estate development, all of it flows to the owner. The Green Bay Packers, one of the few publicly owned teams in American sports, have made their financials transparent for years. The franchise model, when properly structured with modern facilities, generates extraordinary returns. The Dallas Cowboys are now worth approximately $10 billion. The New England Patriots, over $7 billion. The Los Angeles Rams, over $7 billion. These are not the valuations of teams in financial distress. These are some of the most valuable sports assets on earth, and many of them got there, in part, because cities helped pay for the infrastructure that made it possible. So let's talk about what the future of this system looks like. There are signs of pushback. When the Oakland A's pursued a new stadium deal in Las Vegas, yes, Las Vegas again, the negotiation became one of the most publicly scrutinized stadium deals in recent memory. Voter opposition in Nevada grew. A public ballot measure threatened the financing structure. The timeline slipped. The A's eventually relocated anyway, but the public conversation around the deal was sharper and more skeptical than it would have been 20 years ago. In Buffalo, the state of New York committed over $800 million in public money to a new Bills stadium, one of the largest public stadium subsidies in NFL history. The backlash was significant. Governor Kathy Hochul defended the deal as an economic necessity. Critics called it a giveaway to a billionaire owner whose family had purchased the team for $1.4 billion in 2014 and now holds an asset worth over $4 billion. The math on that one is not subtle, but the deals keep getting done. Because the system keeps working, because the leverage doesn't disappear, because the emotional attachment to teams is real, and the political calculus hasn't changed enough to stop it. Here's the final thing I want to leave you with, and this is the part that took me the longest to fully understand. We tend to talk about stadium subsidies as if the central question is whether the economic return justifies the public investment. And that's a fair question. Economists will debate it forever. Some deals produce more value than others. Some stadiums do revitalize neighborhoods. Some anchor developments do generate long-term tax revenue. But focusing only on the economics misses the deeper truth. The real story of stadium deals in America is a story about who controls rare assets and what that control is worth in a negotiation. Sports leagues deliberately limit the number of franchises. That artificial scarcity gives owners leverage that no ordinary business has. And they use that leverage, systematically, strategically, and with enormous financial sophistication, to extract public support for private gain. A stadium is never just a stadium. It is a negotiating weapon. It is a real estate anchor. It is a political event. It is a vehicle for franchise appreciation, and it is, in many cases, one of the most successful uses of public financing for private benefit that American capitalism has ever produced. The owners know this. The best city negotiators know this too. The question is whether the public ever fully internalizes it before the next ribbon-cutting ceremony. Because somewhere in America right now, a team owner is sitting across the table from a city official. The owner is smiling. The city official is under pressure. And in the background, very quietly, The relocation conversation has already begun. The stadium hasn't been built yet, but the deal has already been decided.